After Gary's talk, I think it's a good time to do this talk. So metal-on-metal hip resurfacing in 2017 is the still a role despite the downsides. Let us see. So I start off with this patient who is an American, a 57-year-old post-menopausal woman who had a BHR done elsewhere but chose to come to me for the other side, and she wanted a BHR. Now I tried to convince her not to have a resurfacing for all the downsides. So I did tell her there is inferior results in females, that metal-on-metal is a more risky bearing than ceramic-on-ceramic or poly, and a ceramic larger THR is a better choice, may give comparable function. I did try my best. She said, "Doc, you are the best judge. You choose whatever you want, but make sure I do all this with your hip that you're going to put it on the right side now." Then I was the one who chickened out, and I did do a BHR on her. So Tom Schmalzried in 2011 said, "A surgeon who has not seen post-hip resurfacing patients can never fully appreciate the functional level this procedure can offer." I can't agree with him more. So if we take any new technology, there's always an early phase, then there's an overuse phase, and it stabilizes. That's been that with all the implants. But however, with metal-on-metal resurfacing, it took a precipitous dive in the after 2010. So in the last decade or two, THRs were improving constantly. However, what was a good implant with metal-on-metal resurfacing became worse with time, and that really was a tragic development. So were there design flaws? Of course there were. The ASR was a tragic development. It had a low clearance metal-on-metal bearing. It had a rim cutout for insertion, which reduced the arc of cover. It had thinner shells which deformed on impaction. So that is all bad news. What about the Jerome? Again had a low clearance, a fatal flaw. It had a titanium spray coating which came off. It had a sharp edge of the cup which caused tendon impingement problems. So what are the reasons for this that we hear today? It's because of flawed designs of metal-on-metal devices. Resurfacing is an exacting technique with a steep learning curve. No one can dispute that. Metal-on-metal positioning is much more critical, and it's very crucial that you get your implant position absolutely correct. Metal-on-metal was never meant to be combined with a stem device, although a lot of surgeons took that option because it's much more easier to do than resurfacing. So today, as we stand in 2017, is there any indication at all for surface replacement? Should we really bother with this technically demanding procedure when alternatives like a ceramic-on-ceramic large head THRs are readily available? Now this is a 45-year-old patient. He's now 45 years old. He had his first THR when he was 91, and he had one revision, two revisions, and he had a periprosthetic, and now with infection, and that's his femur. And this is another patient who is 43 years old, had a first revision, and now has come with a broken stem. This is the common scenario that we see in our population because our index surgery is done very early, from the 20s and 30s, and this is a common scenario that we have today. Now, there's another patient of mine, 23, typically that we operate day in and day out, avian, 23 years old. I did a surface replacement on him. Unfortunately, he became a drug addict later on. 6 years later, he developed IV abuse. So he developed infection, which was the first stage. And this is the revision. Note, I've used primary components. I have not used any revision components in this revision. So the importance of saving bone in the Indian and the Asian context can't be overemphasized. So now we come to this, the safety versus performance pyramid. So on the bottom of the pyramid, you have the poly bearings. You have a safe cushion for component positioning. It is quite tolerant of malpositioning. However, large heads and high activity will cause early wear. Ceramic-on-ceramic is sort of a compromise. But at the top of the pyramid, you have metal-on-metal. You have bone conservation, and you have ultra-high activity level, as I'll show you. However, the downsides are metal ions, and there's a very narrow corridor of safety for component positioning. So just like the uni, I'd like to compare the uni. It's not for everyone, but for the patient who is super active, carefully selected, big male patient, there's no doubt today in 2017 that the hip resurfacing is the best option. Incidentally, it has the best published 10-year results of any prosthesis in this difficult subgroup of a young, active male patient. It's got the best published results. So if we took a head-on-head comparison between ceramic-on-ceramic and metal-on-metal resurfacing, this is by Kuhn-Smith, and you see the Harris-Hip score much higher for hip resurfacing, dislocation rate much lower for hip resurfacing. Another paper by Lingard, again showing the superior functional results of the BHR. This is an advertisement in the US saying how the resurfacing patient can come back to an active life. This is a celebrated American athlete, Corey Folk, who I did the surgery in 2005 in this very city, Chennai, India. And for those who don't know, he competes on the Ironman on a professional level. And so it's a very grueling event. Takes a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a 42-kilometer run. And don't tell me you can do this with a poly. And these are the events that is completed after the BHR surgery. That was more than 10 years ago. These are the events that he completed after the BHR surgery. And he sent me a mail on 10th year of his BHR, 2015. He said so far his BHR has done roughly about 200,000 kilometers of cycling, 35,000 kilometers of running, and 4,000 kilometers of swimming. Now, please don't tell me that your poly bearing will do that. What is more interesting is that Pat Campbell from UCLA measures his ion levels after every event, and it was very low for 10 years. Now it is not traceable. Metal ions are not traceable anymore. That means the bearing has got better and better over time. More closer to home, young patient in the Indian Army, bilateral BHR, 2006, more than 10 years he's serving in the Indian Army. So the BHR, or metal-on-metal, a well-designed metal-on-metal resurfacing is the best tool in my hands to restore high-end functional capacity. What about 10-year papers? This is from Oxford group, which coined the word pseudotumor. In this difficult subgroup of patients, the survival rate is 99% at 10 years. This we are talking about big male patients. Now this is from Ron Tracy, one of the developers of the BHR, 98% at 10 years. And this is from Shimon's group from Melbourne, 97.5%. And in the Canadian Orthoplastic Society, they say the failure rates of hip resurfacing in 5 years justify the ongoing use of the technique in men, in big built male patients. Yeah. My own paper on AVN, very difficult subgroup to operate on, but it had a very successful rate of more than 98% at midterm survival rate. My personal experience, I've done over 2,000 of them. There have been failures, but the alveolar and pseudotumors have been less. The late collapse of the femoral head has been the major problem. What is interesting to note is that the failure in femoral head size over 48 has been practically nil if you discount the two during infection. So male patients over 48, the rate of failure is close to 0. So this is the thing I'm referring to. If you measure metal ions after 10 years, they continue to decline and eventually it becomes non-traceable. And this has been published recently, again by Kundesmet. So if you see what surveillance, if you have a well-designed resurfacing device like the BHR, there's actually no need for surveillance unless they are symptomatic. For other ASR, Durham, etc., or STEM device, of course you need surveillance. So not for everybody, but for a carefully selected patient, just like the uni, the male patient with arthritis and a high activity level in 2017, it continues to be the best option. So at 28 mark, I like to say, bone conservation in the right patient has been a rewarding experience for me if implant positioning was optimal and the process, the proven track record like the BHR is used. So it also happens to have the best published results in the difficult subgroup of extremely active young patients. I'm sure you'll all agree this is the most difficult group to handle for THR. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. What's the future? From December, we are starting the ceramic on ceramic resurfacing, and hopefully for female patients and the other group, we can address with a ceramic on ceramic resurfacing. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite Dr. Su.